Rick Ferguson, rickfergusonmusic.com. Thank you for joining me in this first of two videos dedicated to the Greek legend surrounding Prometheus, god of fire, and his use of fire in the creation of humanity has inspired some really wonderful musical and other artistic creations. Let's explore a little bit, shall we? In this video, we're going to be exploring Beethoven's work, specifically for the ballet, using this Prometheus myth, and absolutely wonderful, especially if you consider how it is entrenched in Age of Enlightenment inspired thinking. I just love this. So let me give you a little background information on this piece. We're in the year 1801. Now, keep in mind, at this point in Beethoven's compositional career, he had been writing music mostly for himself as a pianist, to really make a name for himself as a young composer and pianist in Vienna. Really hadn't been there for a very long period of time. So at this point, at the beginning of 1801, when Beethoven was asked to compose music for Creatures of Prometheus by the well-known Italian choreographer, composer, librettist, really impresario, Salvatore Vigano. Beethoven didn't have much time to do this. He had to write this ballet score in less than 2 months. This was really a challenge for Beethoven. His only symphonic output at this point had been his first symphony, and then his first 3 piano concerti, which were very well received. But Beethoven was still developing his symphonic style. And so this was Creatures of Prometheus, Beethoven's first work for the stage. And it was his first attempt to do a collaborative project for the stage, and his only full-length ballet that he ever wrote. It was premiered on March 28th, 1801 in the Burgtheater in Vienna. It ended up having, I believe, about 14, certainly over 24 performances. So it did gain some momentum, and it has some legs. And you'll hear it performed every now and then these days. However, there are excerpts from Beethoven's score that you hear a lot. We'll be hearing the overture, and I found a great recording of the overture that I think that you'll enjoy. It's also, I think, notable that Creatures of Prometheus was one of the first full-length works of Beethoven that were performed in the United States. In this case, Creatures of Prometheus had its premiere at the Park Theater in New York City in 1808. And so at that point, Beethoven started to certainly move not only throughout Europe, but started to gain popularity here in the States. So I thought that was great. He was asked to write this by Vigano because Vigano was very nervous about trying to write this score himself, it being requested by Archduchess Maria Theresa, wife of Emperor Franz. So Vigano wanted to make sure that he had a really, really good musical score for the ballet. Beethoven was starting to become all of the rage at this particular point in 1801. So those are the circumstances for this particular match. And I think what we would want to do now is really listen to this overture. I have a recording for us from 1944, Arturo Toscanini and the NBC Symphony. And I just love this recording. So enjoy. Let's talk a little bit about the libretto for this ballet, because it wasn't just simply a ballet based on allegory. It was a ballet, as I mentioned earlier, entrenched in enlightenment thinking, specifically thinking around bringing science and the arts to humanity for the specific purpose of addressing what they termed at that point to be ignorance. So bringing the scientific method, bringing new scientific discoveries, really extolling the arts as a means of being more human, expressing our humanity and mirroring that humanity through the arts. And of course, Beethoven was always a huge proponent of that branch of enlightenment-oriented thinking. And so that infused his work in Creatures of Prometheus, a ballet. And so in this case, we have Apollo essentially serving as the god of all of the arts, facilitating the instruction of these two proto-humans, which were created by Prometheus out of clay after having stolen fire from Zeus. So the structure of this ballet is we have the overture, we have an introduction, then we have 15 set pieces, then the finale. It is during the course of these 15 set pieces, these 15 dances, that the two humans are instructed. And as we go through the course of this ballet, they become more and more human because of the wisdom and knowledge that they are receiving. And boy, do we have a cast of mythological characters in this particular ballet, these 15 numbers. So we have them being taught, and these two figures, that one male, one female, we have music being taught to them by Amphion, Arion, and Orpheus, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And then, the Orpheus idea would later work its way into the middle movement, the second movement of Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto. That's a fabulous story for another day, and I will absolutely circle around to that because it's another great example of enlightenment-inspired thinking. Just using music on its own merits, but really trying to express something well beyond that as far as celebrating our joint humanity. The two figures were taught tragedy and comedy by Melpomene and Thalia. Were taught pastoral dance by Terpsichore and Pan. That must have been fun. And then heroic dance by Dionysus. And so you have this enlightenment. It's a great clue to how people were thinking during this particular period in time in the early 1800s, and the strong influence of Enlightenment era thinking on education, on the expansion of knowledge, of wisdom, of what's often called the fraternal connection between all people. So what I would like to do is now to listen to another short excerpt, which would have been one of these 15 numbers. It's an andante solo della Signora Casentini. Signora Casentini was the prima ballerina who danced in these first performances of Creatures of Prometheus, and so this would have been a solo dance piece for Signora Casentini. This is actually featuring an arrangement for oboe, basset horn, and piano. We'll be hearing Leela Storch on oboe, William McCall on basset horn, and Anita Cummings on piano in a recording from 1986. Enjoy. So, Beethoven, in this particular score for Creatures of Prometheus, since the quality of the music was somewhat lighter, he incorporated both the basset horn and the harp. And I believe this might have been the only occasion where Beethoven used the harp in any of his symphonic music. And it was a rather singular example in Beethoven's orchestral output. And the quality of the music, I find it is just to be absolutely lovely and so much fun to listen to. It also coincided with the growth of Reform opera. So Salvatore Vigano, the choreographer, he was a big proponent of what was known as, at that time, as Reform Ballet. And that was occurring, as I said, simultaneous with Reform opera. Well, I've explained a little bit and given some examples of Reform opera in one of my other videos having to do with Christoph Willibald Gluck and Antonio Salieri with their work in terms of Reform opera, and you can certainly reference that video. The idea being with this Reform movement in the arts was to strip away all aspects of what was seen at that time to be artifice, to try to get more to the core and to be able then to reach more immediately, more directly your audience members and express what you wish to express without other distractions, and really keeping the focus on the narrative of really what's going on, whether it be operatic or, in this case, ballet, which is a really interesting concept. And so Signor Vigano was very, very interested in this idea of using ballet to espouse these Enlightenment era ideas. And so I think that's just fabulous. And Beethoven really, I think, was in many ways stretched to do this, having a very short timeline, I think less than 2 months, to compose this music. But I think it ended up really serving his purposes very well. And I'll speak to that in a moment. Right now, I want us to hear the finale of Creatures of Prometheus. Here we have a wonderful performance by the Orchestra of the 18th Century, conducted by Franz Bruggen. And I want to thank Orchestra of the 18th Century Topic YouTube channel for making this available, because I just love this recording. And keep in mind, they are playing instruments not very dissimilar to instruments that would have been in use during these initial performances. So enjoy. So this finale also served as inspiration, as material for two other really great works by Beethoven. One being the set of 15 variations and fugue, and boy, what a fugue it is, in Beethoven's Opus 35, piano variations, the Eroica piano variations. In addition, you may very well recognize this thematic material in the finale as being used in the fourth movement, the finale of Beethoven's Third Symphony, the Eroica Symphony. So Beethoven got a lot of good use out of this material from the ballet, Creatures of Prometheus. I hope this has been interesting for you. I just love this music, and I'll be looking into how Alexander Scriabin made use of the Prometheus myth in the early 20th century in my next video. So enjoy, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.